todas e a todos, sejam bem-vindos. Professora Joana, professor Nicholas, welcome McDonald Lewanika, the Director of Accountability Lab from Zimbabwe in Harare. Como dissemos, esta tarde teríamos a honra de termos o McDonald, que vai partilhar a experiência do Accountability Lab. No ano passado, precisamente around these dates, I was in Harare, around these dates, estava em Harare para acompanhar a primeira graduação do Accountability Lab. A primeira graduação deles, Accountability Lab. Em Harare. Estive lá e tal, ver uma cerimônia bonita. Eu vos disse que um daqueles graduados foi e ganhou um prêmio global. Então eu disse, a melhor forma de fazer isso aqui é trazer o McDonald's para aqui. É trazer o McDonald's para estar conosco, para nos inspirar a nós. Para nos inspirar a nós. Partilhar o que se faz no Zimbábue. Para perceberem que o que estamos a fazer aqui não é uma coisa totalmente única no mundo. Noutras e muitas partes deste mundo se está a fazer e está a trazer muitos e bons resultados. Por isso nós estamos aqui, para colher esta experiência. So what I'm saying, McDonald, is we have invited you as that catalyst of the Accountability Lab in Zimbabwe to share with us your experience. How did you manage to build that successful program that is generating fruits in Zimbabwe and the region? These young leaders, they have come from the 3 provinces of northern Moçambique, Niassa, Nampula, and Cabo Delgado, and they have undergone an intensive virtual training, and now they are going through this do camp, and tomorrow is their graduation. So today they have this opportunity of learning, of drinking from international experiences as they prepare themselves to lead as transformational agents of change. So I would like to invite you to share with us your experience, inspire these young people. They are Mozambicans, but they are also Zimbabweans. They are the young leaders of SADC. Thank you very much. Palmas para o McDonald. So it will translate for you. Yeah, you can stand here.
I know a few Mozambican greetings. The one that is coming to my mind is Bonoite, but I'm sure that is good evening.
Yes. Ele diz que conhece poucas palavras sobre Moçambique ou português. A única coisa que lhe vem à mente é boa noite, mas sabe que boa noite a essa hora não é possível.
So I'm going to try bom dia.
Ele está a dizer bom dia, será?
Okay, good afternoon. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, comrades and friends.
Boa tarde.
Boa tarde.
Boa tarde. Boa tarde, senhoras e senhores.
It is a great pleasure to be with all of you today.
É grande prazer estar com todos vós.
And I would like to, first and foremost, just pass my thanks to CDD and Professor Novunga for the honor and invitation.
Queria agradecer ao CDD e em especial ao professor Novunga pelo convite.
Being in a room like this brings nostalgic memories for me.
Estar numa sala destas traz-me umas boas recordações para mim.
As Professor Novunga mentioned, this time last year he was in Zimbabwe, attending a process similar to this and graduating a class similar to yours.
Como o professor Novunga já disse, no ano passado ele estava em Harare, não é, participando numa sala, um treinamento como esses e esperando a graduação também dos jovens como vocês.
But this process is nostalgic for me because a day before I came here, we were doing a similar process in Harare as well.
Então isto é muito marcante para mim porque tenha vindo cá, aconteceu a mesma coisa lá em Harare, Zimbábue.
And at that particular graduation ceremony, the person who we invited to be a keynote speaker is Professor Novunga's friend.
E a pessoa que convidou para aquele evento é um dos amigos do professor Novunga.
Some of you may not know him, but I hope you get to know him. His name is Arnold Tsunga.
Talvez vocês não conheçam ele, mas talvez deveriam conhecer ele. O nome dele é Arnold Nunga. Tsunga.
Yes. Now, what is nostalgic about that is that when I was asked to introduce Arnold Tsunga,
Uma das coisas mais marcantes sobre isso é que quando eu estava a apresentar o Sr. Arnold Tsunga,
I shared with the people who were in the audience how lucky they were to be having a training process in an incubator of the kind that we were graduating from.
partilhei com as pessoas que lá estavam que deviam fazer. I didn't get. Could you please come again?
That they were lucky to be having these kinds of processes where you undergo intense training, mentorship, get access to different voices and then graduate.
Sim, eu disse para os jovens que é uma oportunidade muito grande de estar naquela formação, porque é algo que traz muitos benefícios na vida dos próprios jovens.
Lucky because when I was your age, and I can see that all of you, except one or two people, are about half my age. When I was your age, we had nothing like this happening for us as young activists and leaders.
É uma graça para vocês, porque na minha altura, quando eu tinha a vossa idade, nós não tínhamos uma oportunidade de ter formações como destas, como vocês têm hoje.
The journey was invariably tougher,
A situação era mesmo muito difícil
and sometimes we would have to learn through failing.
e nós tínhamos que aprender com os nossos erros, com as nossas falhas.
But for those of us who were lucky,
Mas para aqueles que tinham mais sorte,
we had people like Arnold Tsunga,
eram pessoas como, por exemplo, o Arnold Tsunga,
who took responsibility to mentor us, teach us, and guide us,
que tiveram a responsabilidade de nos mentorar, nos ensinar e nos treinar.
and where necessary to scold us.
E ele também teve que nos dar um assessoramento.
Because we don't always get things right, and when we don't get them right, we deserve to be chastised in order for us not to make the same mistakes again.
Agora, porque quando nós fizemos alguma coisa e essa coisa não está correta, precisamos de ser corrigidos para que não voltemos a cometer os mesmos erros.
So that's the reason why this is nostalgic for me, because it reminds me of a younger me without the guidance of Professor Novunga and without the advantage of a community to benefit from coming up in leadership and activism.
Por isso que é algo que sempre é marcante para mim, porque a atividade que está a ser levada a cabo por o professor Novunga é algo que pode impactar diretamente na vida dos líderes e na sua vida transformacional.
I had prepared a few notes,
Preparei algumas notas,
but I hadn't finished compiling them. I thought I would have a few more minutes, so I haven't been able to complete them. So I'm going to start this conversation off the cuff, based on the brief that I was given by Professor Novunga, and then I can refer to the notes later.
então eu tenho, como já disse, tinha algumas anotações, mas não terminei de fazer as anotações. Então vou aqui proferir alguns pronunciamentos daquilo que eu já tive como briefing dado para o professor Novunga.
My sharing is going to be based on two stories.
A minha partilha estará baseada em duas histórias.
One is my own journey as a leader and activist,
A primeira tem a ver mesmo comigo, como pessoa, como líder e como ativista.
and the other is a story about a person who is pretty much like you, who has inspired and leads me today.
E a outra é a história de uma outra pessoa que também inspirou a mim como pessoa até chegar ao nível que eu estou hoje.
So I am a Zimbabwean of foreign descent,
Eu sou de Zimbábue, de pais estrangeiros, pessoas que já perceberam, né? Os pais não são de Zimbábue.
which basically means that I have got no rural home or point of origin in Zimbabwe.
O que quer dizer que ele não tem origens de Zimbábue.
When I was growing up,
Quando eu fui nascido,
people used to speculate that I was either from Malawi, Zambia, or Mozambique.
as pessoas diziam que talvez eu fosse de Malawi, Zâmbia ou de Moçambique.
My own wish was to be from Mozambique,
E o meu desejo era ser de Moçambique,
but it turns out I am actually from Zambia.
mas na verdade eu sou de Zâmbia.
Now, growing up in a country which has got a pride heritage around sources of origin,
Crescer,
growing up in a country where people find it easy to identify where they come from in the country,
crescer num país em que as pessoas facilmente conseguem identificar de onde cada um vem,
it was difficult for me to fit in easily because I didn't have that point of origin.
isso foi difícil para mim porque eu não conseguia me identificar, não é, com aquele tipo de origem de pessoas do Zimbábue.
All of you, if we ask you where are you from, people will say I'm from Nyasa, I'm from Nampula, I'm from Pemba. I couldn't say that about places like that where Zimbabwe was concerned.
Se eu perguntar a cada um de vocês de onde é, vocês podem dizer só de Nampula, Niassa ou de Pemba, mas eu não tive essa oportunidade de me identificar de algum lugar dentro de Zimbábue.
And to those people who identified that that was my situation, to a large extent, they thought that I was a second class citizen.
Então, para aquelas pessoas que conseguiam perceber isso, eles consideravam-me como uma pessoa de uma segunda classe.
So my fight for a place in Zimbabwean society,
Sorry?
my fight for a place in Zimbabwean society
A minha luta para poder ter um espaço no Zimbábue, na sociedade de Zimbábue,
has basically been a lifelong fight, starting with trying to identify and know who I am.
então, foi uma grande luta porque primeiro eu tinha que lutar para ter uma identidade pessoal.
And that is, understanding who I am is basically what also made me understand my place in leadership in Zimbabwean society.
E perceber onde eu estava, onde eu estou, faz parte também da percepção do nível de liderança que eu pude colher deste período lá no Zimbábue.
That treatment as a second class citizen
Aquele tratamento como pessoa de segunda classe
made me want to challenge people more around their understanding of what a citizen actually is.
fez com que me desafiasse, né, a mostrar às pessoas o que significa ser um cidadão de fato.
By law,
Em lei,
citizenship does not accrue to a person simply because they can identify the province or rural home that they come from.
a cidadania não quer dizer apenas com a identidade ou a identificação de onde você é ou de onde você vem.
By law, citizenship accrues to a person because they are born in the country or born to Zimbabwean parents.
A cidadania devia ser algo que mostra porque a pessoa já foi nascida num país, por exemplo, o caso de Zimbábue em Harare.
And I qualified on both grounds. I qualified as a Zimbabwean citizen on both grounds.
E eu qualifico isto, ou qualifico este tipo de pessoa como um cidadão de Zimbábue.
So if I qualified on being a Zimbabwean citizen on both grounds, what right did anyone claim that I am a lesser citizen simply because I could not identify a rural home? If I could qualify as a citizen constitutionally, what right did anyone have to say that I am lesser of a citizen simply because I've got Zambian origins?
E se eu me considero cidadão zimbabuiano porque nasci aqui, por que as pessoas podem qualificar como sendo um estrangeiro, um cidadão que não faz parte daquela nação?
I'm sharing this primarily because, number one, it was my entry to activism at a personal level on something that affected me personally.
Eu estou a partilhar isso porque é algo que afetou a mim de forma pessoal e espiritual.
The first election in Zimbabwe that I was eligible to vote took place a long time ago in a year called 2000.
E a primeira vez que eu tive a oportunidade de votar, já passou um bom tempo. Talvez foi em 2000.
I'm not sure how many of you were born by then,
Eu não sei quantos vocês já tinham sido nascidos nessa altura.
but that was the first election that as a citizen I was eligible to participate in.
Mas aquela foi a primeira vez que eu tive chance de participar nas eleições.
Unfortunately, even though I said that the status constitutional is that you are a citizen by birth, origin, or because your parents are Zimbabwean, was not yet popular and familiar at that particular point in time.
Infelizmente, o nível de considerar-se um cidadão, como eu tenho dito, é na base do lugar onde você já foi nascido e pela identidade.
So despite the fact that I was 20 years old at that time, sorry? You didn't get the last statement?
Yes.
Okay, no, I was just saying that I was eligible to vote. I became qualified to vote in 2000, but I couldn't vote because I was considered an alien.
Ok, ele tinha elegibilidade de votar em 2000, mas como não era considerado como um cidadão zimbabuiano, ele foi impedido.
Eventually, I went to the High Court
E depois ele tinha que ir já nas instituições judiciais,
and ended up voting using a court order.
e aí tinha que já votar usando um documento.
Now, for me, that was an important point in my life
E para mim aquilo foi algo muito importante,
because it was about me as a citizen taking responsibility for something that affected me directly.
porque é algo que eu achei que eu tive que levar ou tomar uma responsabilidade porque tinha afetado, impactado na minha vida.
I could have stopped
Não devia parar
and waited for someone to fight for me,
e esperar que alguém lutasse por mim ou para mim.
but I didn't take that route and
Yeah.
decided to fight for myself.
E eu não fiquei parado e decidi lutar para a minha eleição.
Now, if you forget anything else that I say today,
E se vocês esquecerem tudo que eu disse hoje,
remember that leadership is about taking responsibility for correcting things that affect you directly.
lembrem que a liderança é baseada. Can you come again, please? Leadership.
Leadership is about taking responsibility
A liderança tem a ver com a responsabilidade, tomar responsabilidade
for correcting
para corrigir os erros que afetam a si como pessoa.
things that affect you directly. It is not a responsibility that can be subcontracted.
Não é responsabilidade que pode te contradizer.
It is not a responsibility that you can place on someone else's door.
E não é uma responsabilidade que você pode levar e jogar para outra pessoa ou na porta de uma outra pessoa.
It is a responsibility that you must embrace,
E é a sua responsabilidade.
regardless of what station you're occupying in society at that particular point in time.
Não importa em que local ou em que situação a sua comunidade lhe coloca.
It is not the responsibility of professors
Não é responsabilidade dos professores,
or doctors
dos doutores,
or lawyers.
dos juízes ou dos advogados.
It is our responsibility as citizens to take the lead.
É a nossa responsabilidade como cidadãos para tomar a liderança.
There is a saying that I like to use.
Essas são algumas frases que eu gosto de usar.
It is usually about poetry and writing.
E tem a ver mais com poesia.
It says that a poet
Diz o seguinte: poeta
is not a special type of a person,
e não é uma pessoa não é um tipo de pessoa especial,
but everyone
mas todos nós
is a special type of a poet.
é um tipo de pessoa especial, é um tipo de poeta especial neste caso.
In that same spirit,
E do mesmo espírito,
I would like to say that a leader
que gostaria de dizer que um líder
is not necessarily a special type of a person,
não é necessariamente um tipo de pessoa especial,
but that everyone
mas é para cada um de nós.
has got the chance of becoming a special type of a leader.
Tem uma oportunidade de se tornar um líder especial.
So once we understand and embrace that,
O que é que vocês estudaram durante os estudos prévios?
we then begin to understand. We then begin to understand. Oh, sorry.
I didn't get it. Então, começamos a entender
Or that we should take responsibility for correcting things that are affecting us.
e devemos tomar a responsabilidade de corrigir tudo que nos afeta.
It doesn't mean that the journey will be easy,
Não quer dizer que o caminho será fácil,
but leadership also takes. We're good. Okay, now I had just finished making the point that a leader is not a special type of a person, but that all of us can be special types of leaders. Saying that does not mean that that particular journey will be easy. Often leadership itself is hard. Some say that it actually takes courage and that it can be lonely at the top. But that is also a concept that we need to be able to look at critically. Is leadership about being at the top? Because if leadership is about being at the top, then we have to wait for those who are at the top to lead and act. And everything that I have said so far suggests that leadership is not about a position or being at the top. That it is about everyone being a special type of a leader. A comrade of mine often says that leadership is not about the position of leadership, but it is about the disposition of leadership. And I think that that is a notion that we need to embrace and move forward with. Because if we wait for positions, we will never be able to build anything. One of my early experiences was in 2001. After I had done this court thing, fighting for my citizenship, I got elected into the National Students' Union in Zimbabwe. Yes. It's an organization called ZINASU, the Zimbabwe National Students' Union. And in that national executive, there were a lot of bright young men. Yeah, unfortunately, there were no women. But all of us were bright, but someone had to be president, someone had to be secretary general, someone had to be spokesperson, someone had to be vice president. But when you are faced with a situation where there are limited positions, and a lot of bright people, it means that some bright people will not have positions. Because there can only be one president and only one secretary general. Now, does it mean that those of us who are not president or secretary general are useless? So we need to embrace that as a reality we reflect on every day. That simply because we don't have positions, it doesn't mean that we are not leaders. And it doesn't mean that we are not good enough. The first job that I ever did in my life was as director of an organization called the Students' Solidarity Trust. Students' Solidarity Trust. And this is an organization that we formed during that time of the Students' Union. I did not wait to initiate ideas simply because I was not president of the Students' Union. As a committee member, without a big position, I was still able to ask my colleagues, how do we deal with the challenges that are confronting us as students in Zimbabwe? And to fashion a solution that led to the formation of an organization.
Recording in progress.
Which was very successful in Zimbabwe, but eventually got global acclaim as well. But eventually became successful, recognizable globally as well. But if I had waited to say that I am not the president, if I had waited saying that I am not the president of the union, the problems that we were trying to resolve would not have been resolved because we were waiting for someone else to provide the solution. This organization that I'm referring to was an organization that provided solidarity and practical support to student activists who would have been expelled from universities. And I was one of those people. And again, instead of waiting for someone else to come with a solution, myself and other expelled students took it upon ourselves to fashion a solution. To provide leadership that would rescue our situation and ensure that we continued with our education. I keep going back to this issue of initiative. Sorry? Initiative. Because I'm trying to demonstrate that leaders are not leaders in a vacuum, but they are leaders in the provision of solutions to problems that affect their communities. Ultimately, you cannot just be a leader from Nyasa if you're not developing tools, if you're not coming up with initiatives, and if you're not working on challenges that affect the people of Nyasa. You cannot be a leader from Pemba if all you're looking for is a position of leadership without coming up with solutions and interventions that are informed by the people of Pemba and that serve the people of Pemba. I know that I don't have all day, and part of the brief was to talk about the initiative that I'm currently working on, which is called the Accountability Incubator, where we have developed a concept of accountapreneurs, which is basically a combination of the word accountability and entrepreneur. The idea there is that even in work related to accountability, there is a sense of creativity, there is a sense of innovation, there is a sense of sacrifice that is associated with entrepreneurship in general that is needed for us to be successful. So as young people, we develop our ideas, but in order for us to truly move, in order for us to truly move the needle, in order for us to make progress, we need to develop ideas that are out of the box. Ideas that are innovative, that are engaging, and can be able to engage a person like yourself. The question that I believe you need to ask yourselves as young leaders, as you develop initiatives, you must ask yourself, if I was not the one developing this initiative, would I participate in it? If I was not the one initiating, if you were an ordinary person, would you participate in your own initiative? Because we have a tendency of coming up with very simple but boring initiatives. And when other young people do not get engaged, we blame them for being apathetic. Yet the challenge is that we, as leaders leading initiative, are failing to be creative. So you need to think about the people that you are leading and coming up with initiatives for. And come up with projects, programs, and interventions that are attractive to them. In the work that I am currently leading, we try to introduce a lot of creativity and innovation into the work. And sometimes the innovation and creativity comes from very simple and basic things. And just trying to place those that you're targeting in a place of comfort. Just trying to place those that you're targeting in a place of comfort. This, of course, means different things depending on where you're doing the work and who you're targeting with the work. I can safely tell you that if you go to Zimbabwe, you will not find a doctor or a director who looks like me. Precisely because there is a particular type of work that I am doing. Precisely because there is a particular work that I am doing. Which entails targeting creatives, working with musicians, working with filmmakers, and working with social entrepreneurs like yourselves. If I don't wear a funny looking tie, I will not get the attention of the creatives. If I don't wear earrings, If I don't wear earrings, if I don't wear earrings, it's unlikely that I will attract the attention of the musicians. And if I don't cut my beard, it's unlikely that I will attract the respect of young women. So, it is important for you to think about who you are targeting. And then inducing creativity and innovation in how you do it. Which means that you cannot think normally. You cannot think normally. You need to be abnormal, a little bit abnormal in your thinking, in order for you to achieve abnormal results. If you stick to what is normal, what you'll get back is normal. If what you seek is change, then you need to change the way you are approaching efforts at gaining change. The work that we are currently doing is indeed with creatives, musicians, filmmakers, and social entrepreneurs. And it has been very, very powerful as a set of work. And I would encourage you to think about how you can use visuals, how you can use art, how you can use art. Yeah, my English bundles are running out. I don't know if you can translate that. But how you use art, how you use visuals, because people are becoming more and more visual than they are readers like myself and Professor Novunga. People are becoming more and more informed by what they watch and listen to than by what they read. And even now, a lot of young people are living on their phones. Now, a lot of people are living on young people are living on their phones. And sometimes if you want to get them, you need to get onto their phones. The challenge for you as an innovator is how do you do that? How do you ensure that while they're on Facebook, you are getting their attention? That when they are looking for games to play in the App Store, that they can encounter something that you are doing. These examples are not abstract. I was telling Professor Novunga earlier today that one of the young people that he graduated last year won something called the World Democracy Innovation Award for an application, a telephone application that he developed with the support of trainings like this one. So last week on Tuesday, he was at the European Parliament in Brussels. Belgium. Receiving an award from the World Movement for Democracy and World Movement for Democracy and the Council of Europe for the innovation that he created from a space just like this one. So if you are doing what you're doing not to change society, at least make a serious effort of it, because it can give you a ticket to Paris. Like it did for Courtney Mukoyi last year. Like it did for this young man called Courtney. So it is also important not to underestimate the power of your ideas. Because we do not know how powerful that idea is when we are in a circle of peers like this one. But once you start applying it, you'll be surprised what people think of that particular idea. And what kinds of people will come to assist you to do the creative, innovative, and important work that you'll be doing as a transformational leader. To support the work that you'll be doing as a young transformational leader. So my encouragement is that let us not be shy about experimenting with our ideas. Even in their nascent form. Professor Novunga will be able to tell you that a lot of us who are doctors and professors and have written work we don't say it, but that work is never the product of one person. Sometimes there's a first draft that exists. First draft. And if it is my first draft and I give it to Professor Novunga, and say, Professor, can you look at the article that I am writing and give me comments? You can tell me that it's rubbish. And go on to say, this is how you can transform it from not being rubbish. If I take his advice, I will improve my article. Then I take it to the colleague by the door there and say, can you review my article? Then she'll say, McDonald, this is brilliant. But maybe you must change one or two things. If I listen to her and make the changes that are necessary, I can publish my article. And then the people on this side of the room will be so impressed by how amazing I am. But they don't know that I started with rubbish. And that it was only because I was given some ideas by Professor Novunga and in order for it to be a brilliant article. But that is how it must work. If you have an idea, don't be afraid of putting it out there and experimenting with it. If people say it is rubbish the first time, ask them how you can transform that rubbish into gold. And when you are given that feedback, embrace it. Embrace it. Yeah. Because that is how your ideas will become better. I want to end my contribution by sharing a story about the second one that I said. It's about a young woman who inspires me and leads us in a lot of different ways in Zimbabwe at this particular point in time. There is a young woman in Zimbabwe called Namatai Kwekweza. Namatai, I think, is about 21 or 22 years old. And she has been leading an organization called We Lead. This organization is less than 5 years old. But it has been able to do so much simply because this young woman embraced her responsibility to lead and to confront issues that she thought impacted her directly. And to confront issues that she thought impacted her directly. Between 2017 and 2020, Namatai was arrested, I think, no less than 6 times. Arrested about 6 times. For trying to stop the government from amending the constitution. The history is that Zimbabwe has got a fairly new constitution which came into existence in 2013. Zimbabwe has got a fairly new constitution which came into existence in 2013. Okay, okay. It's not. I don't think it's material. But yeah, this young woman was brave enough to fight against amendments to the constitution because she was demanding that the constitution needs to be implemented first before it is amended. Initially, it started as a process that emerged out of anger. It started as a process that emerged out of anger. And eventually grew into a passion around the respect of rule of law, the rule of law, the respect for human rights, and the promotion of democracy. As I speak right now, this young woman called Namatai is in a place called Cotonou. Cotonou. Which country is that, Prof? Cotonou. Yes. Yes. I apologize. That's what I do to people who are not listening. If I see you not listening, I'll ask you where is Cotonou. So as I speak right now, she is in Benin, attending a high-level panel. High-level panel, so sort of like this, but high-level. Yeah. Yeah, of African leaders on democratization. But no one would have thought that this girl who started protesting as herself and 2 other friends in 2017 would be sitting in a space where African leaders would be asking, what are your thoughts on democratization on the continent? So we must not underestimate the power of small steps, even though in activism, sometimes those small steps may start by putting you in harm's way. But if you find yourself in those kinds of situations where you feel you're in harm's way, then at least you are lucky you've got the vice chairperson of the Southern Africa Human Rights Defenders with you. I said, if you find yourself in situations where you feel threatened, at least the good fortune of young people in Mozambique is that they've got Professor Novunga, who is part of the Southern Africa Human Rights Defenders Network. But part of the leadership challenge is to be innovative enough to keep yourself out of harm's way. When I asked this young girl, Namatai, what it is that makes her so successful and so solid in her leadership, she gave me a very interesting answer based on a model. And this is a model that she developed. It is called the SERVE model. SERVE, S-E-R-V-E model. And that model is the last thing that I'm going to leave for this room as something that people can add to their repertoire of leadership in addition to transformational leadership. So SERVE is actually an acronym. The S stands for servant leadership. And it speaks to those issues that I mentioned around you exercising your leadership in support of solutions that cater for the communities that you're coming from. It speaks to the notion of exercising your leadership in support of people. Yeah, so leadership is not about you attaining a position. It is it is about you putting the needs of people first. That is what the S stands for. The E stands for empathy. And this speaks to your ability as a leader to be able to feel the challenges, hardships, and feelings of people that you're supposed to be leading. If you cannot put yourself in the shoes of the next person, you cannot be able to adequately serve and lead those people. So we need to build a culture of brotherhood and sisterhood, which has empathy at the center and embraces the notion of us being our brother and sisters keepers. The R stands for responsibility. And I will not belabor this point very much because I started my conversation talking about taking responsibility for things, for correcting the challenges that you face and the things that affect you. The only thing that I would like to add is that it is about taking responsibility now. Do not listen to anyone who tells you that youth are the leaders of tomorrow. Because why should we wait for you to lead tomorrow when you are living today? When you are confronted with challenges that may actually ensure that there is no tomorrow for you to talk about. one of the things that you have been focusing on as part of this project? Is the issue of developing transformational leadership for purposes of building peace. Because we know that we are not necessarily living in peaceful times. And precisely because of that circumstance, if we do not practice what we have been learning over the last couple of months and today, now, if we don't practice it now, it is possible that we will not be able to practice it in the future. If the insurgents doesn't get us, some other problem that we are confronted with right now might get us. It may be disease, or it can be anything else. So we don't have the luxury of waiting as young people to save and practice leadership tomorrow. We need to do it today. And hopefully that way we can ensure that there is tomorrow. The V stands for volunteerism. And this basically speaks to being selfless, participating out of free will as young people, and embracing sustainable ways of engaging in development that do not necessarily require us to be forced or to be paid. This basically speaks to your contribution as a leader of a variety of things. You can volunteer your time. You can volunteer your effort. If you're like me and you can sing, you can volunteer your talent. So there are many ways in which we can be able to volunteer and not seek unnecessary financial reward and not seek unnecessary financial reward. Because volunteering in itself can be a rewarding exercise if we are doing what we are doing for the right reasons. Volunteering and leadership can be its own reward. And leadership. If we accept that the issues that we're engaged with are issues that affect us and that the solutions will be good for us. The last letter is E, which is basically the second, but arguably the most important E. Because it speaks about expression. This is basically about a commitment to you as young leaders and us as people who are supporting you, committing ourselves to creating an environment which allows young people to speak and express themselves freely and in ways that they want. And when we talk about expression, we are not talking about just verbal expression, because that is what easily comes to mind. But remember the challenge that I posed earlier for you. To also think about the people that you're trying to engage. And ask yourself, what forms of expression would they embrace and understand better? What forms of expression would they embrace and understand better? Those then become the forms of expression that you explore. And you continue to allow for space to discover and explore more ways of expression as long as they impact you and impact the people that you're trying to target. Okay, the challenge is to continue discovering different ways of expression. And continuing to think outside the box so that you can come up with novel ways and better and more effective ways of expression. So that's the same model of leadership. And that is the last thing that I would like to leave you with. Thank you very much.
Obrigado, obrigado, McDonald Lewanika, nosso visitante das terras de Harare, no Zimbábue. Harare, Zimbábue. Tivemos tradução, interpretação simultânea. Então, vou de imediato passar para a Joana. I'll pass on to you to lead the next session. Yeah. How long will it take? 30. He said 30. Okay. So, okay.
Okay. Okay. We have listened to, thank you, is it Professor McDonald? Emeritus. Okay. Thank you very much for that powerful message. And I was telling my colleague that everything he has said, you have come to add up. Is that right? I said thank you first, and then I'm saying that everything he has told us, Professor Nicholas has said.
Butterflies. One of the most beautiful insects in the world.
Is that right? So, which means there is no magic wand anywhere. The story is the same. And the time for action is now. He shared with us his story. And all the things he said there yesterday, we discussed here. How to be creative and how. Okay. Then we end here. We're going to watch another movie, short one, 4 minutes. But this one is in English. So I don't know how. Do we watch 1 minute and you translate, or how do you want it? Okay, we shall see. So please keep quiet and let's all watch, and then we will talk after the movie.
Butterflies. One of
It
the
is
most
called
beautiful
the
insects in the
way of
world.
the bobolitos. Is that how you call
These
butterfly?
creatures have four transparent
Boboli-